Manifesting the full potential. Such a buzzword these days. Manifestation. Particularly as we're coming out of lockdowns and all sorts of weird things that we had to adjust to because of COVID, and where we have had the opportunity to manifest a lot of the things that we all wanted. How many of you have spent the time perhaps coming here to the ashram and finally coming here and always wanted to come and never could and finally did? And like that, a lot of people have done a lot of things, a lot of hobbies, a lot of old forgotten things that have been able to manifest. Because we had the time, because we had the available energy. Energy, the energy for life. The Pawan, the divine wind. Let's close our eyes for a moment, please. As you close your eyes, bring now the awareness to your breath, so you can feel the air coming in and out softly through your nostrils. No particular technique, no particular rhythm, but rather just the awareness placed on the flow of life. On the essential unit of life. Not a concept of life, not an idea of life, but life itself. One breath in and one breath out. Stay connected to your breath, noticing how this unit comes composed of two apparent opposites, the inhalation and the exhalation. Two sides of a coin. Two apparent opposites joined in a unit, the unit of life. That life that we can't do anything to win or to get or to buy. That life that we can only accept and receive as it comes to us. That life is the fuel for manifestation. Without it, nothing we can manifest. So important it is to life that without it, there is no life. As you stay connected to your breath in this moment, hear the words expressed in the Upanishads. You are what your deepest desire is. As your desire is, so is your intention. As your intention is, so is your will. As your will is, so is your deed. As your deed is, so is your destiny. One more time, stay present for that unit of your breath. And now open your eyes. what I'm going to talk about or I'm going to express is a little bit of an elaboration of these words of the Upanishads. For what are we to do here in life? We are here to fulfill our duty. We are here to fulfill our dharma. That mission that our soul incarnates in a body to come and ultimately manifest. Manifestation being a perceptible outward or visible expression that embodies something abstract or theoretical. An outward expression, perceptible, something we can perceive. As you have heard, I specialize in grief. Grief being one end of it, grief being the end, grief being the loss, our reaction to the loss of all existing things, our human reaction to the impermanence of everything that exists. And because we identify ourselves through our attachments, of those things that we want to have in our lives, to be happy, to be safe, to be fulfilled. And when those things go, there goes our happiness, there goes our safety, there goes our possibility of fulfillment. When we lose those things, those people, we lose part of who we are. And the great opportunity in grief, in the process of grief, is that at the end of the process we can find out who we really are. Not who our families told us to be, not who our cultural background indicated that we needed to be, but who we really are. And so, given that we have that opportunity, and I'm telling you the story of how this idea of the manifesting the full potential through these three practices that I'm going to be sharing with you these 3 upcoming days came to life, manifested for me. It was just an idea. How can we use that potential that grief has of teaching us who we are in the best possible way? And when looking for that, when looking for how to do that, how to address that manifesting our Dharma in a full way, I could, of course, go nowhere else but to yoga. For yoga, to me, is the manual for life. A bit like, let's say we buy a bicycle, and it comes in the mail in a box. And if we happen to know anything about bicycles, we may be biking that same night. But if we don't know anything, we may spend the next couple of months trying to put that bicycle together. Or we can take a look at the manual and follow the instructions. Part A, B, C, put part A with part B. Part B has a hole number 4, hook with. And we're biking. And that is what yoga is for me. A manual for life. A life that we know how to live. A life that we know how to manifest. One interesting thing I learned from Buddhism was that we come to this life fully equipped with everything we need to live it fully. When a kid comes to life and a newborn is born, his eyes see. They don't need to go to a course of differentiation between day sight and night sight, or black and white sight and color sight. Those eyes open and they see everything. And just like that, we come to this life fully equipped to live it. And yet, for some unknown reason, known as the greatest cosmic joke, we forget. We don't know. So we have to get therapists and teachers and people that tell us how to live because we think we don't know. That's why we go to yoga classes. We don't go to yoga classes to do yoga. Yoga is done. Yoga is what's happening. Yoga is this. Yoga is everything. Yoga is the whole. We go to yoga classes to remember, to regain that knowledge that we have forgotten. That's what we do when we go to a yoga class. Or even when we read the Upanishads, or when we access a scripture, or when we listen to a guru. The guru only reminds us of that what we already know. That's the yoga. That's the manual that I'm referring to. So I went to the manual in seek of how to manifest a full life, how to manifest our full potential. And so, of course, I found it. And Swami Satyananda, one of the great Swamis who studied with Swami Shivananda, brought back from the darkness 3 practices called Pawan Muktasana. Pawan is divine wind, a beautiful name for the breath. That wind that is blown in our nostrils by the divinity. Mukta is to free, to liberate, to make flow. Asana is postures. So these are postures to liberate the flow of life force. These are 3 series that we're going to be seeing, that we're going to be practicing. And even though in the little blurb it said simple practices, I must warn you that one of them is very simple, the other one is not that simple, and the third one is not simple really. They can be done anyway by anybody, but they're not necessarily simple. So the 3 Pawan Muktasanas, the first one is normally called the joint freeing series. A very simple movement of each and every one of our joints, because it is in our joints where the life force gathers the most, because it is in our joints where the life force gets blocked the most, and because without free flow of life force, nothing can really happen. Only the manifestation of the blockages, but not the full potential. I am from Uruguay. And in Uruguay we say that a life is to plant a tree, to write a book, and to bring up a child. And once I assisted a lecture by my master, Prempal Singh Rabat Maharashi, and he was asked about these 3 parameters for life. And he smiled or smirked, and he said, no, life is not to plant a tree or to bring up a child or to write a book. Life is 1 breath in and 1 breath out. The book, the child, and the tree are stories of life, are manifestations of life, but they're not life themselves. If you don't have your breath, nothing you have. While if you have your breath, you can always plant another tree, bring up another child, and write yet 1 more book. But without the breath, nothing you have. So this breath is the energy that we need for the manifestation. A manifestation that is signaled by 3 principles. To have available life force, to have available energy, to know what we want, and to have the will to do it, the power to do it. And the third one is to be creative, because life is going to present us with innumerable challenges of all sorts, coming from outside, coming from within. And we have to overcome those challenges in a creative way to be able to manifest So these three principles of manifestation, having available life force, knowing what we want and the willpower to do it, and being creative to be able to overcome the challenges, those are the three principles that will allow us to manifest. And interestingly enough, the three Pawan Muktasanas follow or address these three simple principles. The first one, I was telling you, the joint freeing series, that's what it does. By gently moving each one of our joints and all our joints in a prescribed order, unblocks the life force. Because in yoga, and particularly in yoga therapy, we know that all illnesses come from a state of disconnection of the source, from not knowing our connection with the source, or from having blocked life force. Every time the life force gets blocked, it results in a symptom. Every symptom is an expression of blocked life force. Therefore, in order for us to manifest anything in a healthy, positive, good way, we need to have available life force running. In that sense, not only we open by moving the joints the life force to flow in the physical body, but also in those other aspects that the physical body is in relation to, related to. Such as, for example, the elbows. The elbows are the elbows, they modulate the movement of the arm, but also they have to do with the law of attraction and rejection. If it wasn't for the elbows, everything that comes to us would either hit us or never get there. The elbows allow us to modulate and to bring some things closer and to put some other things away. The elbows are also wonderful for boundaries, because perhaps in dealing with you, this part of you I want, and this part of you, nah, keep it for yourself. And with you, the opposite. This part I want, this part, why don't you take it with you? And so this ability to have boundaries and to relate to others, sometimes the responsibility of what we attract in our lives, what we bring to our lives, and what we let go. This type of things, for example, live, we say in psychosomatic psychotherapy. They live, they are somatized, they're brought to the soma, to the body, in the elbows. So by doing this simple movement, we are not only making the elbow function better and unblocking the life force in the elbow, but also we are understanding better and being more fluid with what we attract to our lives and what we let go. What we keep with us and what we give back to the universe. And like that, each one of the joints have a meaning, a significance that relates to our psychic life and to our spiritual life. So Pawan Muktasana number 1, the simple joint freeing series, that's what it does. Interestingly enough, today we know that the psychic force goes from the head to the toes and from the center to the periphery. And this practice, several thousand years old, knows that in order to unblock the flow of life force, we have to go from the toes to the head and from the periphery to the center. This practice is to be practiced always in the same way, in the same order, precisely because of that. And because that joint that you skip is the joint that gathers the blocked life force. So this is why, even though, and this one is the simple one, really simple practice, beautiful practice that everybody can do. This is the first one that we're going to see. And in that sense, available energy relates to flowing energy. The word energy derives from the Greek energia and is a fundamental entity of nature that is transferred between parts of a system in the production of physical change. Because we have said that the manifestation has to do with being able to turn an idea or an abstract concept or a theoretical notion into an embodied manifestation, into an embodied fact that we can perceive, that we can see. Then energy is needed. That energy is the life force. And that's what this first practice is for. Energy flow readies manifestation, makes us ready for it. The second Pawan Muktasana number 2, it's usually called the wind practice because it's wonderful to expel gases and to promote digestion. That Satya, is that your Satya, that so brilliantly spoke to us the other day about how important it is, digestion. Because in addition, the digestive system is the second brain. That's how we call it as well in psychosomatic therapy. It's the second brain, it's the way we think. We think with our digestive system. So when we get things in that are not appropriate or we are not digesting properly, we can't think straight. We can't think well. And we do need to think well for manifestation. Because as we said, the second principle is to know what we want. So this practice deals with the willpower center, located 4 fingers under the belly button and 2.5 inches going in. The Tantien point of Chinese medicine. The phrenic point for psychology. And many of you may know that the worst of the psychosis is schizophrenia, a partition at the phrenic point, where an individual cannot relate the upper reality and the consciousness with where their feet are, with the actual reality that they're walking. That's why a schizophrenic can look at you and say, "Hi, uncle," and I'm not your uncle, and yet they are seeing your uncle in you. They cannot relate the reality to the real reality, the reality they see to the real reality. It's the hara. Very important point. The hara and the muscles around the hara, the abdominal muscles, are very important. And they shall be relaxed and yet toned. By the way, this is why Buddha is represented as an overweight individual. He was a small, very thin prince. He was not overweight. He is represented as overweight to indicate the relaxation of the muscles around his hara. For he had very strong will. So much will he had that he left his kingdom and his privileged position to wander as a vagabond, to go around as a beggar, to understand the reality of those that were impoverished and that did not have the benefits of the life he had enjoyed. So this practice, what it does, is a combination of toning the muscles with, at the same time, pressing on the abdominal muscles to expel that what clogs our will. And, oh dear, can our will get clogged? Very much. People that don't believe in us can clog our willpower. Procrastination clogs our willpower. Addiction and compulsion clogs our willpower. And then, even though we want some things that we all know we want, we cannot manifest them. We cannot do them. We cannot get them to be an outward expression of what we want. So Pawan Muktasana number 2 deals precisely with the willpower. And in that sense, the willpower cleansing gives manifestation direction. Pawan Muktasana number 1 gets us ready. Pawan Muktasana number 2, by cleaning the willpower center, gives us the right direction for the manifestation. And then comes Shakti Bandha, the lock for the creative force, for the creative energy. That's number 3. That's the more difficult one, because it includes a lot of movements with the pelvic area. It is intended to undo some neurological knots that happen in the pelvic area that is extremely related to creativity. Let's remember that a newborn comes to life in the pelvic area. A newborn is created in the pelvic area thanks to organs in the pelvic area of a man and organs in the pelvic area of a woman. Talking about the significance of the different joints, the hip joints relate to creativity in terms of survival. How we can use our creative force to survive and to live. To survive as an animal, as an instinctual animal, but also as a creative being. Creativity has to do with finding the new, with grabbing some of the things that are already in existence, because as Lavoisier said, nothing is destroyed, nothing is created, everything is just transformed. And yet, each one of us have the potential of creating something completely new, a new version of an issue, of an idea, a new version of life. And in that sense, then, cleaning, working on that area and cleaning, toning and getting rid of possible energetic blockages in the area of the pelvis, in a way, helps us find ways for manifestation. So Pawan Muktasana number 1 readies us. Number 2 indicates the way. And number 3 finds those ways that number 2 had indicated, had shown us as direction. Number 3 finds us the way. These are the 3 Pawan Muktasanas, and when looking for that new self that I was telling you that comes after an important loss, when we lose someone we love, when we lose something we are very attached to, that we all are, of course, then a new self emerges. And who is that self? What is the possibility of that new self? And so this is why I gathered these 3 practices that Swami Satyananda brought back to light and put them together in this little course of yoga to manifest your full potential. Because it's true that even though we all have a mission, we all have a dharma, we all have a duty that we came here to do as related to our own souls, sometimes we don't. Sometimes problems and blockages in any of these 3 areas that I expressed can either result in such an illness that doesn't give us the time to manifest that duty, or that allows us to get lost in our direction, or that does not provide us with sufficient creativity to be able how to do it, and we either may use our entire lifetime and not being able to manifest for what, according to some scriptures, we are then to come back. Our soul is to go to the bardo and wait until a new opportunity is given and then incarnate again and come again. But we have the possibility of reduce that number of life cycles that we are here to live on earth by using the manual of yoga, by reading those pages and browsing through those wonderful suggestions and advices and knowledge that yoga gives us. And we have other techniques that can help us. And particularly, we have the help of one very important principle in the universe called pronoia. 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 Which is that principle through which once we want something, a whole lot of things start to happen that assist us in manifesting what we want. Anywhere from the simplicity of one wanting to have a new car, and perhaps white, and then white cars start to show up everywhere. And we see white cars everywhere. And our aunt that is old enough and she can't drive anymore and she's getting rid of the car and she gives us the car. And what color is the car? White. And many of you, of course, may have different versions of this principle. This wonderful principle of the universe. To which Goethe, the German philosopher, added something that I want to read to you, because it is so important. So important it is. And he says, until there is commitment, there is hesitancy. The chance to draw back always an effectiveness concerning all acts of initiative and creation. There is one elementary truth, the ignorance of which kills countless ideas and splendid plans. That the moment one definitely commits oneself, then providence moves too. All sorts of things occur to help one that would never have occurred. A whole stream of events issues forth from the decision, raising in one's favor all manner of unforeseen incidents and meetings and material assistance which no man could have ever dreamed would have come his way. Whatever you can do or dream you can do, begin it. Boldness has genius, power, and magic in it. Goethe takes that principle of pronoia and amps it up a notch and adds something hugely important: commitment. Something so common here at the ashram. For you guys are all very committed, and that's what you teach and that's what you promote, commitment. This is why you have renunciated to a lot of things. And even some karma yogis that are here, and maybe many of us as well, when we decide to come to a place like this, is because we are in seek of certain form of commitment. Because without it, we are a leaf in the storm, a leaf in the wind. Life will happen anyway, no doubt. We're destined to that. That is our destiny, as the Upanishads say. Only that by reading the manual and committing to the practices that the manual offers, we can speed up the process. We can get there earlier, faster, in a more comfortable way, and with much less suffering. So, if anything, I hope to see you, for it is commitment that we are after and that I am after as well. And so these practices are beautiful, but as many other practices of yoga, they are nothing if they remain written in a book that can be forgotten at some corner of our library. It is not until we do them, until we manifest our will and we commit to what we want, that they don't come to life. It is not the technique or the tool, but the operator of the tool who matters. For an operator can recreate a tool, but a tool cannot create an operator. So, briefly, that's it. That's what we're going to be doing these 3 upcoming days. I would love to see you. And if we have the opportunity, I would also teach you 3 other techniques that I like for this. One of them is Mahat Yoga Pranayama, or complete breathing, one of the forms of the 3 parts breath, belly, ribs, and chest. An optimum way of using the life force. By using the belly, the ribs, and the chest, we create an optimum way, an optimum space for this in triangles that our lungs are to breathe fully and to fully get rid of the CO2, the carbon monoxide that can kill us. The other technique is Sankalpa. Sankalpa, usually translated as intention. That is a little bit of a weak translation. I like better seeing it translated as resolve. The resolve that things are going to be the way I want them to be. Of course, this game is a little bit like when we were kids and we had sand molds, remember? And we were filling them up with sand and turning them around, and depending on what you were playing with, you had little train or little doll or little car. It is said in spirituality that it is up to us to create the mold, but it is up to the divinity, it's up to God to fill it up. But we create it. And Sankalpa is that wonderful technique to be able to create the mold by stating what I want. For instance, let's say, I want to be happy. Then my Sankalpa shall be, I am happy. It shall be in the present tense, because if I say, I will be happy, God's going to make me almost happy, and when I'm about to be, no, you will be. And almost, no, not yet, you will be happy. So it has to be in the present tense. I am happy. The second rule of thumb for Sankalpa is to not use the word no or use words of negative connotation. If I want to be happy and my Sankalpa is, I am not unhappy, it's not going to happen. And the third one relates to the practice. To be spiritually present in each part of the statement. So we don't do, I am happy. What are you? Or I'm happy. Who's happy? I am happy. Sankalpa is a wonderful technique. And if we can, we're going to work a little bit on that. I don't know if we will be able or not. The third one is Hasta Uttanasana, the attitude of salutation. A very simple technique that yoga gives us in order to understand what we want and to be able to ask for what we want and to open ourselves to receive it. Very simple technique. Place your palms together, please. And think of something you want. And I don't care if it's a new car or to enlighten or anything you want. Now open your eyes. Inhale. Open your mudra, Maha Mudra, a little bit and blow your wish between you and God. Now extend your elbows. And inhale and bring your arms up, asking for what you want, elevating to the higher spheres of knowledge. Open now yourself to receiving it and bring your head back. Now close your arms up and grab it from the universe. And bring it down for manifestation right here on earth. So the next time you walk into your dream. So one more time, please be conscious of what you want. Dare to ask for what you want. Open your arms and receive that what you want. Be open to receiving it. How many times it comes and we don't receive it because we're not open. Now inhaling, grab it from the universe. And exhaling, bring it down for manifestation. And one last time, please. Ask for what you want. Open yourself to receiving it. Make sure you do what you need to do to grab it and bring it down for manifestation. Thank you. Very simple technique. Hasta Uttanasana. Not just asking for something, but already saluting it. It's coming. Ask and you shall be given. If it is in the order, it shall be given. If it's not in accordance to the order of God, it won't. I can ask and repeat, I am 15. I am 15. It's not going to happen. I can have youthful 60s. I can have youthful 60s. That may happen, but I am 15 is not going to happen. So along with these techniques, with the three Pawan Muktasanas and Mahat Yoga Pranayama, Hasta Uttanasana and Sankalpa, I hope to help us manifest our full potential. And I'd like to leave you with a story about Sankalpa that is very, very potent. It's real. Sankalpa works. So there was this couple, and they were both 60 years old. They've been married for 40 years. 60 years old, both of them. They're walking in the park and they find a genie lamp. Of course, they rub the genie lamp. And here comes out the genie. And the genie addresses the woman first and says, "Lady, your wishes shall be granted. What would you like?" And the lady says, "I would like to have enough money to go with my husband around the world twice." And the genie goes, ding-ding-ding, and gives her a beautiful suitcase with enough money to go around the world twice with her husband. Remember, they're both 60 years old. The genie turns to the guy, to the man, and says, "And you, sir, your wishes too shall be granted. What would you like?" And the man goes, "I'd like to have a wife 30 years younger." And the genie goes, dee-dee-dee-ding, and turns the man into a 90-year-old guy. So be careful with what you ask, because it's coming just as you ask it. So, dear ones, do you have any question that I may address? Oh, no questions. All right. Yes, you have one? She has one back there.
Good evening. You opened the session with a passage from the Upanishad. Could you say exactly where that section is if I wanted to get that section from the Upanishad?
I could not tell you off the top of my head, but I could find out for you where it is. And do you know? No. No. So I will do my best and I will tell you. I apologize that I'm not knowledgeable enough.
You have the statement written down?
Yes.
Okay, that'll be good. That's sufficient.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
I will give it to you, yes. Any other question? Not as difficult as that one, please. Yes.
Okay. Om. Loved your talk, by the way. Thank you very much. Since you said the yoga manual is a manual for life, I'm wondering how Pratipaksha Bhavanam, which is in the Yoga Sutras, which is one of my favorite
one
passages.
of my favorites as well.
Right, Vitarka Badane, Pratipaksha Bhavanam, how that ties into manifestation and also Sankalpa when we kind of lose our way sometimes, right? So I'd love for you to comment on that, please.
Thank you for bringing that up, because that is one of the also great sutras for me as well that unfortunately has been misinterpreted by the West severely. And I will explain why. Because the sutra says when you're dealing with negative thoughts, travel to the other side of the mansion. Go to the other side. And of course, the West has understood that Patanjali was talking about affirmation and positive thinking. So if you think you hate her, just imagine you love her and you're done. And none of our minds are that silly to accept such a contradiction in a good way. What Patanjali was talking about was a reality that neurology has discovered and proved today, which is that once you have a perception about yourself or about anything in life, or once you have a perception about something, where thoughts then relate to those perceptions that you have, they define them, and you push your thought process, your imagination to the extremes of the continuum, when you return to that same place where you started, you never feel the same way. Your perception, your proprioception, your perception of yourself, for example, let's put something simple. I am cold. If you imagine that you are cold, like you have just taken a shower and you're naked in Alaska, in winter, outside, outdoors, and now you're imagining that you are in the ashram in Bahamas, in the hottest moment where the water is almost boiling, and then you go back, how cold are you? Your perception of how cold you are is never the same as it was when you started. So this idea of visiting the opposites is embedded in the activities of yoga. Yoga is an ode, is a song to Praktipaksha Bhavana. This is why in yoga practice we bend forward, then we bend backwards. We go to the right, then we go to the left. We do asana, then we relax. In yoga we are permanently visiting the opposites to reassess the awareness of where we are at from a neurological standpoint. It's a brilliant sutra and it's a brilliant suggestion. How to use it for manifestation? Well, being creative, I would imagine that perhaps it could be in any of the points, but particularly in the willpower, to be able to identify what is that you want. Because sometimes, for example, working with Sankalpa, I ask the students, what do you want? And you would think that anybody would say, oh, I want this and I want that. And then when we go there and we try to name what we want, we name it in a way that would never work. It comes to my mind partners that came to me for grief because she has had a miscarriage. And so I worked with them on their grief, then they moved out of the practice, and then at some point they were ready to have another child, and they said, we want your assistance. And they came back to me. And when they came back to me, I asked them as the first assignment to come to the session with a sankalpa that could address their wish. And their sankalpa was, we're going to try at least one more time. She never got pregnant. Because their minds were full of this type of sankalpas that we don't understand we have and that are guiding our manifestation. And this is what we manifest is exactly the opposite of what we want. This is where the phrase fearing is chanting so what you don't want happens. That's right. If you fear, oh God, I'm going to fall. No, I'm going to try, but oh, maybe I fall. Oh, no, maybe I fall. You fell. You fall. So perhaps in that moment I would practice Praktipaksha Bhavana sometimes, daring to think what I really want and what I really don't want, and to find myself in a better place. Another place where I would practice Praktipaksha Bhavana would be in the creative process. Because sometimes our ideas are so limiting, and if creation is finding a new way, a new version of something, our limitations go exactly against it. But even from the formation of creativity in the brain, it is the temporal lobe that analyzes the idea that the frontal lobe gives, and the frontal lobe dysfunction results in some problems in creativity. But the temporal lobe, that's a huge problem in creativity because we cannot envision the new. We have come up with different criticisms and judgments and censorship. So perhaps in the creative processes where I would dare to go from one extreme to the other to then find my way in the creation. Does that make sense? Thank you. It's a great question. Any other one?
And hello.
Hello.
Thank you for this very interesting talk. I was just wondering if you could possibly speak on the overwhelming tendency in the Western world for people to just completely misunderstand yoga or to just completely miss the core point of it, even though they may practice it quite often. I know it's a difficult question.
It is, yes, it certainly is a difficult question. But what I would say is that I am sorry that that is the case. And me being a Westerner, I am sorry for my brothers and sisters, Westerners, that have misunderstood. And I believe that perhaps the misunderstanding comes from a patriarchal capitalistic society. A society that is based on the personal will and the personal intention as the motor for capitalism and for being able to get things done and to do more and to do more. One of the things that is failing in this moment, and that Saint Corona, as I call the coronavirus, because it has given us a lot of good things, has taught us that if your intention is only based on your personal good and what you want for yourself, that cannot thrive in the world, in society. And this is how we destroy the world. This is how we went to a place completely different, and this is why capitalism could not save us from coronavirus, because we were not equipped, because we were based on that. So I personally believe that when we go to a yoga studio and we see all these people competing to do the best possible asana, and when in reality, when they die, their bodies are going to go rigis mortis as anybody. If it was about asana, the contortionists would not be employees in a circus. They would be enlightened masters. It's not about asana. And yet the West bases the grades and the levels, level 1, level 2, level 3, level 60, on that aspiration of winning, of competition, and not competition with the self, but competition with others. So I would imagine that that aspect of the organization of the Western society is the one that has not allowed us to take in the beauty and the depth of the Eastern philosophies. And this is why yoga has spread as a nice physical thing, as a workout. Keeps your glutes strong and your abs in six-pack. Not really. And even if it does, that doesn't matter. This is somehow called the entry level. And this is why yoga offers us, when we're ready to transcend the entry level, offers us through Shat Karma a lot of cleansing techniques for us to ready our bodies and to cleanse our bodies and to cleanse our minds in order to receive the depth of the knowledge, the most important pages in the manual that are the ones that relate to our spirit and to our emotional and spiritual life. The body's going to go sooner or later. Thank you.
Oh, I actually have one more question.
Okay.
Which is, when did you receive the inspiration to combine yoga and psychology? Like, what inspired you to do this? Because this is a very effective combination.
You are very right. That is a very effective combination. And it came as a result of my personal life. When my mother died, my mother and I were very good friends. And she died when I was 19 years old in the course of a fight with my father, a discussion with my father. She had a brain a stroke. And for 2.5 years, I did not grieve. Nope, my mom did not bring me up to be a sad creature crying in the corners, so there I was, partying and studying and traveling and sports. And every time the pain of grief would come, I would, like with a tool, with a switch. One day I was able to withstand it. This happened in Argentina, in the Pampa, where the colors of the autumn are a little bit like in New Hampshire. They're very beautiful, very rich colors of the autumn. And you know how it happens. Nature makes you vulnerable in its beauty. And so I was made vulnerable, and of course grief crept in, and I was able to stay. And when I stay, please don't think I was able to stay 3 or 4 days. I was able to stay 3 or 4 seconds with the pain of grief. But what I discovered was that in the place where one of my ribs meets the sternum bone, a calcification was born, a bone spur that Western doctors could not explain, but that I could. Because my body was telling me that I needed to attend this area. This area that later on I understood was where Anahat chakra is, where emotional bonding is, where the 2 chords of Anahat chakra are the positive one, love, the negative one, attachment, the conditional love, the love with the condition of presence. And so that gave me an insight of how the psychology that I was studying and the mind and all that, number one, it changed my outlook on psychology. I was ready to be a humanistic psychology, and I changed completely into body-oriented psychotherapy because I could see that my body had a lot more information than my tongue could ever come up with. And then on the other hand, the part of yoga that I understood, that convinced me, that I understood as true, is that perhaps in a Western world where all things are promises of great functioning, and if you buy this, and if you pay it in 3 installments, this is what you're going to get. And yoga, with none of that, inevitably, invariably, all the time works. And every time it works. And because each time that your mind changes in nature, your breath changes in pattern. If you want to get to a certain mind state, apply the breath pattern that goes with that mind state. And it doesn't matter how many times you practice it or how challenged you are, it's going to happen. That certainty of yoga, that assertiveness in the results, is what I understood was the right fit for the psychological life, was the right way to get them both together. And then the rest was just life. A person that gave me a job as a yoga teacher in a fancy spa, once she gave me the job, she said, "Could you design a routine to address the physical aspects of grief?" And when she said the physical aspects of grief, my bones said, she knows me. She knows who I am. She knows that I exist. Because otherwise the doctors were like, I don't know what's the relationship with that, between that bone and your dead mother. And so she gave me the inspiration. And it was just an act of yogic emergence. It just wrote the sadhana that we have been practicing these last days. Thank you. Thank you for the question. I believe we shall stop. Is that correct? Yes. So, thank you very much to you all for listening and to you for bringing me back and inviting me back here. I really appreciate being in this ashram. It does me very good. And thank you.